Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's only me again. Thank you very much for tuning in for another round of metal detecting. So I just want to say welcome to a Spanish Armada Beacon site. That's right, during the 16th century, when the threat of Spanish invasion was at its absolute peak, all across the coastline of the UK, there were beacon sites where essentially they would set fire, a huge pile of wood, and that would essentially alert people to let them know that the threat of a Spanish invasion was certainly looming or quite close. I have been on this permission before, and it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. It wasn't ploughed then, it hasn't been ploughed for probably about 8 years. However, I've had some pretty decent things out of this site. It's a really interesting place with lots of history. The history goes back way beyond the Elizabethan times as well, and the finds that I've had out of here definitely proves that. It's just been ploughed, guys. It hasn't been rolled or seeded yet, and I've got a couple days in here to see what we can get out, and hopefully we can get some great stuff. So thanks very much for tuning in. As always, I really hope you enjoy the videos. Of course, do let me know what you think of them in the comments below. And if you want to be notified every time I upload a new one, then you just have to hit that subscribe button below. It's nice and free. It's not going to take any money from your bank account. And of course, if you want to support me, support what I do, then all you have to do is drop me a thumbs up on the channel. But that's the talking out of the way. Let's get loads of digging done today. Hopefully we get some good stuff. I will see you all on the very first hole. So it's that time of the day where we've got our very first signal in the field, and I just want to say before we begin that the weather today is going to be very on and off. I think it's going to be a mix of kind of sunshine, showers, a little bit of misty rain, so it's a typical British summertime kind of day today. So if you see me wearing a coat and then back wearing my t-shirt, trust me, it's all filmed on the same day. I'm just putting my coat on so I don't get absolutely drenched. And you might have noticed as well that today I am actually using the 13-inch coil for the XP-Deus 2. Main reason why: there's going to be very little resistance on the top of this lovely powdery soil here. So I want to get as much ground coverage as possible, bearing in mind that this hasn't been sort of squashed and rolled yet. So, you know, we need to try and get the most out of our hours in the field, and I'm just hoping that the extra reach and the little bit of extra depth on the 13-inch coil is going to help us do that today. And the program I'm using, of course, is Forager. The only differences I've made is I have put the silencer down to about 1, and I've bumped it up to a frequency max of 40 kilohertz using a frequency scan of about 1. So I'm going to give that a little go to begin with and see how we get on with that. However, we've just come down on our very first find, and what we have got here is actually a piece of lead. So it's not even that great, but there's something very interesting about this piece of lead. It's not your standard ordinary piece of lead, because on the very bottom of it there is this almost kind of razor edge just poking out. And I've taken a closer look at it, and what I can actually see is that they have taken almost what is a kind of copper alloy type thing, wrapped it around in lead, and then left almost this sort of cutting edge coming out of the bottom. And it kind of reminds me a little bit like a really crude style razor or something like that, because, you know, you can actually just see, looking at this cutting edge, that once it would have been quite sharp. And obviously, if you know how to sharpen your metals, this could have been quite an effective little cutting tool. Now, I could be completely wrong, of course. This could just be a random piece of lead with a bit of copper alloy sandwiched in between it, but it looks pretty interesting, doesn't it? What do you guys think? Do you think that was once used as a sort of cutting tool, maybe a very sort of rudimental razor type thing? Let me know in the comments below. I'll do a bit of research, see if any others have been found like this, but I would imagine that this is going to be fairly kind of handmade, so they're all going to be relatively different. But to me, that makes sense. But you've got to have a good imagination in this hobby. which can sometimes be a little bit dangerous, but you've got a dream. Come take a look at this awesome little surface find down here. It was literally just lying on the top, clear as day signal, and it was actually giving me a kind of silvery type signal as well. So yeah, I wonder what this thing is. So, I mean, really and truly, the shape of it looks a little bit like a sort of drawer handle, doesn't it? And of course, it still could well be a drawer handle. But the only thing that makes me think it isn't a drawer handle is that it's hollow. Now, usually furniture handles and things, they are solid. So yeah, it's a bit of a mystery object, this one, but it's very, very decorative. I think we're gonna have to give this one a squirt of water and just see what detail we've got on here, really. So by the magic of editing, I will squirt this with water and we'll see what it looks like. And here we are. It's squirted with water. It's had a little bit of a clean, and check it out. That is awesome, right? Look at the detail on that. And the best part about it is, I actually do think it is silver, because you can just see this kind of silver coming through the black tarnish here. So if this is silver, what would it have been used for? Because it is hollow there, it does have something still stuck inside of it. So was this like the top of a cane? Something like that? It's got a bit of a sort of Victorian look about it, isn't it? Some really nice decoration on there. So this could be Victorian stroke Georgian, but it is silver. So that is our first silver find of the day, and it was just lying on the top for us, waiting to be found. You know, we can't argue with that at all. Absolutely amazing. Let me know what you think this one is in the comments below. If I obviously do find out what this one is, then I will stick it, of course, on the video. But guys, if I don't put anything on the video, just assume that I have found absolutely nothing out about it at all. And I'll be relying on each and every one of you to help me out with the stuff that I find. So there is something green sticking out of the ground here, and I'm going to have to excavate this one fairly quickly because it looks like we're going to get a pretty sharp downpour any second. But here it is, guys, if you can see it, and it's very green, isn't it? That's for sure. So let's just see if we can prise it out and see what it is. It feels pretty big, so this could be like a buckle or something like that. But I want to try and get it out without breaking it, and my spade is miles away, so I can't dig around it. But here we go, it feels like it's going to come out now. Oh, here we go. What do you guys think? And there it is. It's a massive buckle, not tremendously old. This would have actually been on a horse strap, so it's likely this is from the Victorian era, something like that. But lovely signal, just not quite what we're looking for. Have a look at this amazing button which has just come out, and it was actually in kind of like one of these big clods, so I literally just plucked it out really, and it is, as far as buttons go, really interesting. Really interesting. So you can see it's got some sort of patterning on the front there, which likely means that this could be some sort of old military button, an old uniform button, but that is just a guess at the moment because it's absolutely covered in mud. So again, with the power of editing, let's give this one a clean and see what detail we can get. Okay, check this out. We've given it a squirt of water and a light clean, and it's definitely not a military button, that's for sure. It actually looks like a really, really old button. So one thing I noticed when I was cleaning it is the lion here, and the lion is above a rose. Now, to me, that looks like a Tudor rose, which could very potentially mean that this is actually a Tudor Elizabethan button. And what an awesome button. It's got this kind of reef that goes all the way around this symbol. And it's likely that I could probably do a bit of research on this button and try and find out maybe, you know, if that's a coat of arms or whether or not that means something. But potentially this button is 500 years old, which is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I rarely get excited about buttons, but this one I am absolutely loving. So I will definitely clean this one up. I will get a picture of it on the video for you. And if I do find out anything about it, of course, I will attach that to the picture. But what do you guys think of that? Absolutely amazing. So we've had a really interesting little lead find here. Now, I've cleaned it off because, to be honest, with lead, it's so indiscriminate as to what it could be. Lead was basically like Play-Doh. You could make anything out of it. You could quick fix anything out of it, and it was just so, you know, valuable to people that needed a commodity like metal that they could melt down, fix things, mold things, make things really, really quickly. So I wanted to clean it off just to see if there was any detail on here, but it appears we've just got a kind of lead blob. It's another one of those weird lead blobs. You might remember in last week's video when I went out with Mr. Tweed, he found a huge lead blob. We just find them everywhere. Lead blobs everywhere. I'm gonna guess that this is probably some type of weight, although I don't know what it would weight. Your guess is as good as mine on that one. It could be a whole range of things. Probably, bearing in mind it's a farm field, could be seed or grain or something like that. But potentially it's a few hundred years old. There's absolutely nothing on it other than just its form. But yeah, it's still quite a nice little lead thing. So I'll definitely take that home, put it with all the other random lead blobs and push on. Hopefully we get something a little bit better. So we've gone and found something that's really, really cool. So although this field has just recently been turned and ploughed, I'm quite surprised at how many things we are actually finding. So I think what's happened is this field has actually just gone through quite a deep plough, and they've literally just yanked it all the way from the bottom and then just flipped it around. So we're really getting things that are just quite close to the surface. And yeah, there's plenty of things in here. So I'm really happy with that, because of course there's nothing worse than coming into a ploughed field and not getting any signals. But obviously once this is flattened down and compacted, it's just going to produce so much more as well. What we've actually just gone and found here is a really sweet little pot leg. Now I actually think that this particular one is a little cauldron leg. So it's very likely that this kind of dates from possibly post-medieval, I would suggest, with this one. but it certainly could be medieval, but it's obviously a small one, so it's what they call a micro pot leg. Really interesting, really interesting. It's got the nice lines going through the bottom bit, which is essentially the foot, and that touches the ground. It's made of solid brass. There would have been a few of these going around the bottom of the pot, and it's very likely that this would have been a little pot used to just throw into a fire, boil up some liquid or something like that. And that's probably why it's so black, because of course this is a solid bronze pot leg. But what an amazing little find. It doesn't matter to me if it's a micro one, a giant one. You know, these things are really historic, because what this is telling me right now is that there were most certainly people here hundreds of years ago, and they were either cooking, farming, maybe there was a small settlement here at the base of this hill. What an awesome little piece of history we've just gone and found. Really happy with that. So let's keep going. Hopefully we get some more other interesting items. So I found something here which looks quite interesting, and it was pretty much near the top, so it just goes to show that my theory of the plough just coming along, scooping everything nice and deep and then just flipping it over is exactly what has happened here. And the reason why I spotted this was because it just had this really shiny jet black thing just looking at me, and it's quite interesting. I have absolutely no idea what it is. I'm going to kind of hazard a guess here and say that it was probably once part of some type of jewellery. Maybe it was part of a necklace, and maybe there was a series of these that were all linked together somehow. But that shiny black bit on the front there is quite impressive, because it doesn't matter how dirty you get this is always just going to be super shiny. So I do wonder whether or not it's like an inset stone, like a polished stone. I have no idea what type of stone that might be, but it is quite decorative. And to me, you know, it does look like it could possibly have been once part of some jewellery, maybe Georgian, something like that, but it could also be really modern as well. I have no idea what it's doing in this field in the middle of nowhere. Maybe somebody was kind of walking up to the top of the beacon hill and their necklace broke, or their bracelet broke or something like that, and it just landed in the field and they didn't notice, so they got to the top and never ever found it. But yeah, there we are. It's not too bad, is it? I'll certainly take that, put it in the bag. Let's keep going. So for some people, like Mr. Tweed, they can go metal detecting, walk into a field, and I kid you not, within 10-15 minutes they've gone and found a silver hammered coin. And he is absolutely famous for it. I just don't know why. He just has that luck. He kind of knows just where to go straight away. And even if there was only one hammered coin in that field, I can guarantee you somebody like Mr. Tweed would just go straight into a field, walk that line and just go straight down on it. Other people in the hobby, like myself, take a little bit longer to get one. However, we have just got one. It was probably 3 to 4 inches below the ploughed soil, and it is most certainly a lovely little hammered coin. I have obviously given it a clean, so what I can tell from this so far is there is a huge date on the front, and that date is 1573. Now that of course means that it is a Elizabethan coin, and on the back, although it is slightly worn on the back, you can see a portrait there of Elizabeth I, and you can see the Tudor rose just behind her head there as well. And the coin itself is very heavily clipped. It would never have looked like this originally. It would have been a lot bigger. There probably would have been about another 2 to 3 mil of silver going all the way around the outside, and that would have contained things like the legend. It would have shown the mint mark and all those sorts of wonderful things. But this is a really good example of a very heavily clipped hammered coin. So what they basically used to do was that they would clip tiny little bits at a time off of silver coins, and they would keep those little shards, and ideally what they would do eventually with them is melt them all down and possibly make their own kind of counterfeit coin. Now, unfortunately, it got to the point where people were just going absolutely mad with this, and somebody at some stage honestly thought that they could pass this off as a hammered coin and nobody would ever realise. It's absolutely amazing how they ever did it, and it makes me wonder to the point where, did they actually get to the point where nobody would accept this coin and so they probably just dumped it in a field somewhere? I'm not too sure, but they actually went and redesigned the whole coinage, and that happened in the very late 1600s when they started milling coins. And the idea of milled coins was that they had this kind of very specific beveled edge that went all around the coin, and the coins were thicker as well. And the idea was that they were trying to get rid of people doing this and then introducing counterfeit money into the system as well. But what's really interesting about this coin is that it does date to the Spanish Armada, and that is pretty much where we are. You know, we're at an Armada Beacon, and to find a coin that dates back to the Tudor times is just fantastic. It makes you wonder, was this coin in somebody's pocket, you know, when they went and fought the Spanish fleet off the south coast? This coin has probably seen so much. Was this a coin for somebody that was working here at the Beacon, that used to trek up this field? No doubt they would have lived relatively local to get up here in good time to set the fire off. But yeah, I'm sure that this tells 1,000 stories. It's amazing to find something that actually dates to the Beacon in here as well. And I have had some hammered coins from this field before, although they have been a little bit earlier than this. So this is a really, really special little find. I'm really happy with it. It's our first hammered coin of the day. A lovely little Elizabeth I Spanish Armada silver sixpence. So I know this isn't a lot to go on down here, but lovely little buckle fragment has just come out of the ground. And one thing I can say for absolute certain about this little fragment is that it's a little Tudor buckle fragment. Unfortunately, it's broken in half. There would have been an equal side to this here. And this, of course, is the little pin, or what's left of the little pin. And that is most certainly a little buckle that dates back to easily the 1500s. Really nice little find, really nice find. And it obviously goes in with the Armada Beacon, which of course we are here, and we are on the hunt of the people that were here working the beacon during those times. And this is another fine example of something that would have definitely belonged to the people that were here operating the beacon, protecting the country. So here's quite an interesting little find. Now, I know that this is a lead find because of the type of signal that it gave me. And of course it just looks like an indiscriminate little bit of lead. However, there's a little bit more to this lead than what meets the eye, because if you can see the lead part here, it's actually attached to something else. And the reason why it's attached to that is because this is actually part of an old pot, which would make this lead a little pot mend. And it's quite cool because usually you find the pot mends, which are odd shaped pieces of lead, but you never actually find them attached to the pots that they were obviously melted into to prevent that particular pot from leaking. And it would certainly explain a lot of the random shaped pieces of lead that we find in a field. I think a majority of them could very well be old pot mends, and of course the pot has just deteriorated and been spread over the field. So it's really nice to find one intact. Very difficult to try and date this. Obviously it could be any age from the sort of medieval period all the way up to the post-medieval period. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that, even though it's just a little lead find. So let's push on, see if we can get something else. So I've just walked into a little section of the field right at the bottom here, and honestly there is bits of pot and clay pipe everywhere. I've just picked up a couple of little bits, probably in a metre square, and clumped them together, but it's really stereotypical kind of piece of clay pipe there. Honestly, there are fragments of this all over this section of the field, so that's really exciting. A really nice little glazed piece of pot. I would say that's relatively modern, but it's kind of got this rainbow glaze on it, which is really, really nice. And then this piece of pot here, which I picked up, is glazed on the inside because it's a rim, and then if you look on the outside, look at this absolutely gorgeous kind of like patterning there with the glaze. It's got these yellow dots. Really, really nice piece. I would say that's probably the oldest piece out of all of these bits that I've picked up, but what an absolutely stunning piece of pot, and it certainly gives me a little bit of hope for this little section here. So I might just concentrate around here for the last hour, and hopefully we get some really nice metal objects too. So we've just got a really interesting little buckle fragment here. Now, this isn't as old as the one that we found a little bit earlier on in the video. It's certainly not Tudor or anything like that, but it's still quite a nice little example. And I would probably hazard a guess and say this was late 1700s, something like that. But it's a really, really nice one. Definitely a sort of little belt stroke, sort of dress buckle, something like that. It's got the little coronation at the top there, which definitely means that it was quite decorative at some point, and it would have been really, really shiny before it was lost in the ground. But yeah, that's not actually a too bad little find. Kind of at the bottom of the field now, we were kind of working the slope up towards the beacon, so I'm just going to spend maybe an hour or so more down the bottom, see what else we get. You never know, we might get some more luck in, you never know. Okay, so we are now at the end of our first day detecting this absolutely amazing Spanish Armada Beacon site, and what an awesome day it's been. We have had some absolutely brilliant finds today. It's some awesome artifacts which really take us back to the people that were here during the 1500s, working the site, you know, possibly lighting the beacon, and maybe possibly living close by as well. So it's just been absolutely wonderful. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video, but guys, stay tuned because next week's video is going to be part 2 in this amazing field. So make sure you subscribe to get a notification for that one, and hopefully we get as many great finds as we've had today. But that just leaves me to say, of course, as always, thank you so much for watching my videos. It does mean a lot, and please comment below if you like the finds. If you can help identify some of those finds, then I always appreciate that. And of course, if you want to help me out, drop us a thumbs up on the channel. That always means a lot. But that is enough for today. I will see you all on next week's video. Thank you very much for watching. See you on the next one.